Hey, everybody, and welcome to Pete Carroll Was Right, the confusingly named Alabama football live video show. As always, it's Carter, Ben, and Mitch here to talk Alabama football with you. We are happy to announce that we have partnered with Alabama fan site Houndstooth Heroes. Who will be hosting our videos from here on out on their website, houndstoothheroes.com. You can also find them on Twitter at HToothHeroes, and you can find them on Facebook. We're very happy to be working with them and very glad that they reached out to us to host our videos. So this week we're talking about Ole Miss and game and issues we see from there, and various things going forward for Alabama. It's good to have that one off your back, for Alabama. After the ignominy of losing to Ole Miss for 2 straight years, that's finally.
Well, I think we talked a lot about this leading into the game, that it doesn't really matter how they were going to get it done. This was going to be the tough game not just because, I mean, who cares about what happened the past 2 years, but more so just because Alabama would have been more ready to play this game in a few weeks than they were last Saturday. So it was just do whatever you can to just survive that game and move on, and then correct all of your issues after that. So the first thing I'll say, I guess, about the game is I do not care how they did it. I just care that they did it.
Yeah. It's time we were just thinking survive and advance, and that's what they did. So I guess there was a couple things we specifically wanted to talk about with this game. So I think the first thing, and one that many Alabama fans are going to be very happy to talk about, is the running game. We were so worried about how well the interior of the O-line was playing and whether or not, they were going to be able to sustain drives and actually just, run the football. And they did. The interior of the line looked really good. I think we said last week that, we were kind of hoping that keep it to a stalemate on the interior, then that would sort of be a victory for Alabama. I think they hit that goal quite easily.
Yeah, and I think you can tell. I think you can probably tell that the staff was hoping, for a stalemate there, because they seemed very reluctant all throughout the game until the later stages to really just sort of give the ball to 34 and let their offensive line lean on Ole Miss. Despite early signs that they were going to be able to do that. I think they just kept thinking, well, we don't really feel so great about this matchup, so we're going to keep doing all sorts of different things, stretch them horizontally, other stuff in the passing game, instead of just sort of like pound the ball between the tackles. But eventually, it just becomes clear that the interior of their line was just playing so well that you don't really have any choice but to just give it to 34 and just let him run between the tackles.
And I think that, and one point I really wanted to hit on that was, the last drive when Alabama gets the ball back. How often do you see, a scenario like that where you get the ball back and the other team has a couple timeouts, and you just need to make 1 or 2 first downs, and you wanna run the ball because you need to make them use their timeouts? How often do you see teams that because the other team knows you're going to run the ball? Because they know what's coming.
We're having some technical difficulties.
I was so impressed that they just.
Okay, so I think Carter Carter's back? No?
Oh, hello? Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Well, that's so okay because it cut out. Like I could hear y'all. Like it didn't. Way my video didn't. Okay, I don't know what the deal with that is, but you can still hear me? I'm good.
We can hear
Yeah.
you now. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's an individual. The fumble is an individual mistake on Bo's part.
Yeah.
Was able to just line up and smash it at him and get those couple of first downs in the game. Was it really? Did it cut out again?
Yeah, we really can't hear you. You're very I mean, choppy would be kind, I guess.
Yeah.
And now I just think you're gone.
I think I kind of got the point, though, right? It was more or less just nice to be able to run the ball when they know that you're going to try to run the ball, I think.
And I agree with that too. It is nice to.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Am I good?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't get why that's happening because, like, it's not – you would think the whole thing, like, mine would freeze up too, but the whole time y'all are just, like, talking and I can hear you, and it's not. I'm not getting any sign that it's not working, but good now?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Anyway, my point was, like, you know, when you just need a couple first downs and the other team knows you're going to run the ball, like, it's hard to get those first downs. And I was really impressed with the way they just lined up and got them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of the 2013 Texas A&M game when A&M scored those 2 touchdowns to pull to within 7 and Alabama got the ball back. And it was just like, you just had so much confidence in the ability of their offensive line to just really take over because you felt like you cannot give that offense the ball back down only a score. Because if you do that, they're going to punch that ball and they're probably going to punch that ball in the end zone. It's just going to be a disaster. So, yeah, I mean, that was really impressive. I thought Bozeman played probably the best game of his career to get into sort of more specific individual player stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was really happy with him. I was happy with Shank. He's so athletic, and I think him being back in the lineup allows him to be used more in like the power game and the counter game because he's so quick at pulling and getting out ahead of the ball carrier and stuff. So I thought he was very helpful. So just in general, I just thought the interior played great.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Damien, of course, was great.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I think it's notable too that Saban really took the time to single him out after the game as far as how great he played because he didn't really he talked very generally about the team and about the win, but he didn't really take the time to single out a lot of guys. But he very specifically mentioned how well Damien played, and I think that's telling because he really did play exceptionally well.
Yeah, he just looks so. I don't think it's really too much of a stretch to say that he has maybe had the best season thus far of any Alabama offensive player.
Well, I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
He like the fact that he's been caught all 3 times, but the 3 big runs he's broken off, I think, show you that he has plenty of speed, and then just his vision, his short area quickness, agility, his decisiveness, all the things that you kind of need to make you a successful on inside zone, which really seems like we're going to be back to that being kind of Alabama's bread and butter run play this year. He has all of those qualities, and they've really been on display early in the season. So I've been super impressed with how well he's played.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And then obviously the other element to the run game is Jalen.
Yeah. Who you know, we just did some tweets about this right before the show, but he first of all, you know, I think they need to continue to work on practicing the zone read and getting more smoother, I guess, at the mesh point. But his, you know, from the very beginning, his decision making in terms of making that read has been very impressive. I mean, you know, I think plenty of people have said this before, but his first play of the season when they had the fumble. If he gets that out in time and it's not a fumble, that's probably a touchdown. Was the right read. They just messed up the exchange, but consistently, seems like just about every time he's run that play that he's made the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he does an exceptional job. There was a great one, their last touchdown drive in the fourth quarter, when the end finally crashed and he had an opportunity to pull it out of Damien's hands, and he did. And Forrestal was coming around on the arc block, and it was just beautiful. Just like a beautiful 40-yard play. The kind of thing that you wait for. You're so patient in the zone read game. You give. When the end holds, keeps contained like that, and finally you have your one opportunity to pull it. I don't know. I was like, thought I was watching Auburn. Like some like Nick Marshall.
That was a very particularly with that arc block. That was a very like 2013 Auburn play right there.
Yeah.
And I say 2013 Auburn because it was a successful play, as opposed to 2014 or 2015 or 2016. And then just the way he runs, we talked in previous weeks about how he kind of needs to be a little more decisive and take the yards that are there. He did a very good job of that this week, I thought. And then Ben, you made a good point earlier on Twitter about how patient he is, I think. And then also I think he shows a very good understanding of angles. He always seems to know to the edge and just get to a first down. He always seems to know right when he needs to cut it upfield to get past a guy. And it's not like he's just out there sprinting as fast as he can and just shooting by guys. It's that he's patient, and then he cuts around the edge and gets the first down.
Yeah. Mitch, what were you going to say before?
Basically, kind of that same thing, but he ran the ball, what, 12? How many, 10, 12 times?
It was something like that. Or was it
more? I think it was more. I think it was like 16 or something.
16?
Was it maybe 12? Was it maybe 12 on design runs?
Maybe.
And then the additional runs on scrambles? That sounds like it could have been
probably.
it.
I mean, I think you've rewatched it, and Carter, you may have as well. I can remember one time where I thought he maybe took a bad angle or tried to make too much of it. But, I mean, honestly, on the other 12 or 13, I thought he took basically what was there every time.
Absolutely.
Basically maximize what we could expect from each of those plays. I was just so impressed.
He was far more north-south this game than in previous games, as far as his running style goes. The offense has a chance. I mean, we'll get to the passing game later, I think. But as far as like, if the offensive line plays like that with the combination of him and Damien, all the different things, and as the diversity that brings to the running game, there's just endless possibilities here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if teams want to start stacking the box against that, first of all, when you play the quarterback run game, whether it's the keep all the way or the option stuff, you really you win back a blocker, right? So that's the one advantage you have when they stack the box. But also, teams want to start stacking the box. That just means one guy takes one bad angle and Jalen's going 80 yards. So that doesn't scare me either. And I think, and again, we'll talk more about how the passing game can take advantage of stuff like that. But I don't know what the answer is. If the line's going to play like that, they're going to be incredible as far as running the football goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I love that they were able to do it, that Jalen looks comfortable both under center and in the shotgun, and that they've been able to use a real variety of run plays, that this is not just a team that relies on one thing or the other, but they've run some of those like spread counter type plays out of the shotgun. They're running from under center. They're running zone read, and I love that they're able to do that in a variety of ways.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it just speaks to what we were saying before. There's just so much diversity.
Yeah,
and I just think that I don't know how. It all comes down to the line, because you know what you're going to get from Jalen in the running game. You know what you're going to get from Damien in the run game. You know the scheme fits them perfectly. If the line plays like that, they're not going to be stopped. And that's a really good, as we talked about before the game, that's a really good Ole Miss defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
So
Going into this game, I was thinking about this, and I mean, I would say the running game as a whole was kind of, I don't, pleasant surprise maybe coming out of this game. It was like if you had told me before the game I could have like an Ole Miss victory or kind of an established run game for the rest of the season, I'm not sure that I would have taken. I mean, I may have said, give me an L against Ole Miss if we're going to have a run game the rest of the season. But you get through with a run game and the win, and it sets
yeah.
up for the rest of the season like really well.
Well, that's
that's.
Sorry, go.
I was going to move to another point. But
Yeah,
if you've got,
go ahead.
well, I think that just sort of ties into something else that we kind of wanted to talk about, which is the resilience they showed in this game and coming back and fighting back. You know, the past 2 years they've lost this game, and you know that's sort of been the rallying point, and they've come back and you know regular season in the SEC championship. But if you know they had that, it was the same test. You know, they were in a really difficult position, but this time they won. And so if they can do years and use that sort of situation to kind of to sort of come together as a team and really sort of improve the mental focus, I guess, then that puts you in such a fantastic position because now, unlike the last 2 years, you don't have to rely on anyone's help.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally right. And I also think, you know, it's I'm not breaking any ground here, and it's the easiest thing to say, but to be on the road in the SEC down 24-3 with a true freshman quarterback and just to not blink. I mean, that's but that's really something, you know.
That's impressive. You know, mental toughness is an overused term probably, but it was really impressive resolve that they showed.
And especially especially, you know, look, I didn't see, I want to say right off the bat that I didn't see this game, but if you think just earlier that day and you look at FSU, right? And when you're on a spot like that on the road and things start going poorly, even the best teams, things can just spiral so quickly and all of a sudden you just get boat raced. And I just think that you look at the contrast between what happened to FSU in terms of that game being allowed to get out of hand and then the way Alabama responded to sort of similar things happening. Obviously, Alabama's a better team than FSU, and obviously Lamar Jackson isn't suiting up for Ole Miss, but it just, in terms of like just how you respond to being put in a very difficult spot on the road and how you respond to lots of things going against you. I just think we've seen throughout the years here with Saban how they just respond so well to adversity in the biggest spots. You know, and I think I always think about 2012 SEC championship, and they block that field goal and they run it back to go up 11 points, and they just didn't blink. I mean, that they just didn't blink.
This is like probably one of our Ben and I have talked about this over and over again. But but right after that, Alabama was down 21-10. The first play after that, I think, when Alabama's got the ball back with that game, and I just remember DJ Fluker gets up and stomps around and he's yelling and he's getting fired up and he's like, he's trying to get guys going. And from there on out, they were just like that drive. They just dominated people. And I think that ties in. And, you know, the point about FSU is a good one because, like, is Louisville really 43 points better than FSU?
No. I mean, no.
Just that it was like you said, like when something like that happens and you get down and everything starts so easy for to just get destroyed, to like you lose focus, you get discouraged, and everything just cascades and you lose by a ton. It doesn't happen to Alabama. I tweeted something. I bet a lot of y'all saw it because it blew up. It's like easily my most popular tweet ever. Was losing by 53 points in that game. The combined margin of victory in all 7 of Alabama's losses since 2011 is 47 points. And it has been since 2004 since Alabama has lost a game by more than like 14 points.
Yeah.
Or no. In 2006 they lost to Florida by 15. But
More than two scores.
Yeah. It's really impressive if you go back and look at them. The last time Alabama lost a game by like more than 17 was like 1998.
It's awesome.
And obviously that extends back further than Saban, but Alabama hasn't lost a game by more than 14 points under Nick Saban. So it shows you the way that he and his staff have been able to prepare teams that sort of thing where you get down and you just get annihilated. It doesn't happen to them.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really impressive. I don't know. It's something that's so easy to get lost in this game because it's like they were down 24-3, and that seems like, I mean, in the fourth quarter, that seemed like light years ago when they were down by that much.
Right.
But, you know, but I also think this is a good segue into talking about as far as when they were down 24-3 and what pulled them out of that hole. And it's something that we've talked about needing to see from this team if they're going to, win a lot of games this year, is making plays outside the X's and O's.
I mean, and that was they scored 3 non-offensive touchdowns in this game. I think now they've got someone tweeted that they've now got an offensive score in 6 straight games dating back the SEC championship game last year where they had a safety, which is a really impressive streak.
That's incredible.
It's so helpful to a team when you can have on teams and in so many ways it's demoralizing to the other team. It can kickstart you when your offense isn't playing well. You think about last year in Alabama and the crazy off the helmet play and all that stuff. The way those plays change a game is huge, and to be able to come up with those plays is it's going to help you win a lot of football games.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's great to see, and the defense, with what they do, and I don't think it's a surprise. First of all, the punt returns, Eddie being back there, that's a pretty interesting change, and given how elusive he is on interception returns, I think that was a pretty good decision, and he did a great job back there, and he obviously broke a big one. Mm-hmm. But also, though, the big plays on defense, and I think this is something we anticipated. The biggest way, the quickest way to create big plays on defense is through your pass rush. Affecting the quarterback, strip sacks, forcing bad throws, stuff like that. And obviously, both touchdowns were on strip sacks because I think the last one was changed to a fumble, if I saw that correctly. Yeah. So just generally, these are things that I think you're not going to get a defensive score every single game. I mean, that's unrealistic. But I do think this sort of speaks to what this team can do as far as even if things aren't going well in a lot of areas, they're always this one play away, because of what they can do on defense and because of what Tim Williams can do and Ryan Anderson can do and John Allen can do. It's always right there for them. And that's a pretty good feeling, Yeah.
And it makes your a comparison you've made about this team a lot is 2011 LSU.
Yeah,
that's an area where I think you really see the similarity. Is because you remember that team was like it. I think people have a skewed view of what that team's offense was like after the way the national championship game went. It wasn't a bad offense, but they had a lot of games where just everything wasn't really clicking. No. They'd do a pick six or Tyrann Mathieu would take a punt back for a touchdown, and then it would just cascade from there.
Yeah, I mean, they were down 10-0 in the SEC championship to Georgia. They were down 14-0 the last week of the regular season to Arkansas. I mean, they faced some deficits early, and then it was always seemed to be special teams or defense would just pull them out of the fire. And I don't know. I don't want that to necessarily be Alabama because I'd like for this team to play from ahead more. But it's just as far as far as how you can create scoring opportunities in so many different ways and how your team is built to make big plays in so many different ways, I think there's a lot of comparisons between the two. So,
yeah. I think the last thing we really wanted to hit on about this game was So the secondary, it was not the secondary's best game. Ronnie Harrison in particular struggled a lot. The touchdown where Evan Ingram kind of jailbroke was pretty much on him. I'm so confused as to why he bit on that play, because they like faked the pitch, right? And then threw it to Ingram. Why do you expect that Ole Miss is going to run that ball, or that? I don't know. It was a confusing mistake.
And it wasn't his only mistake, too.
Right.
Yeah. And to be fair, he was on, which is an extremely tough assignment for a strong safety, but it was aside from Ingram just getting his, which he was going to. It really wasn't a good game for Ronnie.
Yeah, I think it also sort of speaks to the point. A lot of his now the long Ingram touchdown, he was playing safety there, but a lot of the other receptions he gave up, he was playing money. And I know he played money all year last year, and I know as far as given the expectations that you're going to have for a true freshman, I know he did pretty well, but I'm not sure that he's good enough in that position to warrant being moved off safety.
Yeah, he's not Landon Collins in that position,
right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't make the impact in the run. He doesn't make the impact in the box that Landon did, certainly. No. And I don't think that was the thing, right? So Landon obviously was not the greatest money as far as defending wide receivers and stuff and defending tight ends. But he made such an impact in the box that was a great opportunity to bring him closer to the line of scrimmage. But in this case, Ronnie does not have that same sort of impact against the run, so you're really having him there for his pass defense. And I just don't think he does enough there to warrant that. Now, right now you're sort of short on players in the secondary, but when Tony comes back and things start to, you can start shuffling things around, I would like to leave him at safety and dime, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you replace? See, I wonder if it's just that they put him in that role because he knows how to play it. He's got the experience, and they just don't have another guy that they like better than. I mean, because when he moves to money, Hootie Jones replaces him at safety. Right. I mean, has Hootie played money at all?
I guess the idea is these are your six best guys, and these are the positions that they're most comfortable in, so that's why you're going to play them there.
Yeah.
It hurts not having Mo Smith. I mean, we could beat that drum all day, but it would be him. But maybe Shaheem Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who clearly, honestly looked good, I thought, coming in at Star. Obviously, I have Twitter up on the side over here, and it's just a repeat of the GIF of your tweet about Alabama not facing a better quarterback than Kelly, and I'm just repeatedly seeing Shaheem stretch out for that ball and it go right past his hands. But that play is sort of symptomatic, and that's a thing I think we need to talk about for the secondary of yes, they made some mistakes, like and certainly, for instance, Marlon, it was not his best game. There were lots of times when they were in perfect position.
Yeah.
They need to do a better job making plays on the ball, but they were in position and they tried to make plays on the ball and just perfect.
Yep.
And the Ole Miss receivers made really great plays.
Yep.
The combination of that is just not something you see on just about any college football team. That kind of thing is so rare. And I just don't think, certainly not in the regular season, Alabama is going to face a quarterback wide receiver combination where with quarterback and wide receiver good.
Yeah, it doesn't get better than all Yeah. I think though. Right. So my biggest concern from this game as far as the secondary goes is not all those deep balls and 50-50 balls that Ole Miss came down with, because I don't think that's instructive necessarily as far as what's going to happen later in the season. I just think they could stand to improve sort of more so in the underneath coverage. So we'll see. I don't know. It's not the biggest concern, and the pass rush covers up a lot of flaws in that area. And Anthony Averett, competed, right? I mean, he played okay.
Yeah. He certainly wasn't a disaster out there like you might have worried that he could have been in this game.
Right.
And I think people, yes, the injuries like happened late. Point, Minka, Eddie, and Ruben's not in the secondary, but all three of those guys were not on the field late in the game. And I think how much of the like total offense that Ole Miss accumulated was in the fourth quarter, like late when they were scoring those last two touchdowns.
Yeah,
they got something like 9 of their 23 first downs and like 3 of their 5 third down conversions in the fourth quarter when those guys were out.
I mean, they were in dime, and the safeties were Deontay Thompson and Hootie Jones.
Right.
And Shaheem Carter's playing, playing star. So it's like, I mean, I'm not going to say that you toss those yards out, but clearly and that defense was just gassed.
Yeah, because by that point you also had like Raekwon Davis in, and I think like Mosley. Did Mosley get in for
James Mosley? Maybe, I don't know, but it was just
Miller.
At one point, Dakota Ball, Josh Frazier, and Raekwon Davis were all in.
Yeah. And Christian Miller too. Yeah. So I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about on Ole Miss before we moved on is just Jalen. The great thing, I think, is that as good as they looked offensively at times on Saturday, there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah. Certainly the passing game, and enough has been said. I have harped on this repeatedly this week. I don't want to talk about the sweeps and screens.
Yeah.
Talk about how you know better than Lane Kiffin does. Like I was frustrated at one point when they ran a sweep followed by a reverse with Calvin trying to pass. Like that was
reverse pass is
the there's a reason those plays are called. Like Saban said, if they execute better, then those plays turn out better than they did. But anyway, you definitely saw where Jalen can improve in the passing game. He's still slow to get the ball out deep on a lot of throws, but especially on deep balls.
Yeah.
He threw for an easy touchdown drive. Areas for improving game.
He really throws very pretty deep ball.
He does. Yeah. He's got a hell of an arm.
Yeah.
Needs to coming open. He needs to throw the ball.
Right.
Waiting too long right now, that's the thing that's exciting about him right now is that he's so good right now, so young that you feel like every week of practice is going to make him better.
Yeah.
I mean, those were kind of some of the same issues we saw with Jake during points of the season last year too, and this was like, a fifth-year senior guy that we saw struggle with the deep ball and going through some of his reads quickly. I mean, it's completely understandable for a true freshman to struggle with that. It's just nice to be able to win when they struggle with that.
Yeah. Is it? I maybe we're getting a little caught up in the fact that he is this good as a freshman, but I don't know. Would y'all say you had more confidence in Jake or Blake Sims at this point in the past 2 seasons than you do in Jalen right now?
Man, that's a big thing. We were pretty nervous about Jalen before the Ole Miss game, so I think we have to remember that. But I don't know, watching Jalen run the football.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Maybe that confidence is coming from a sense of optimism as far as like, oh, he's just going to keep getting better. Whereas with 2 fifth-year seniors that are starting out, it's like,
there's a ceiling.
Well, they're fifth-year seniors. How much better are they going to get at this point? maybe I'm being a little unfair to them in that sense, but I feel pretty good about Jalen right now.
So do I. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited to see what progress he makes in the next 2 weeks, and then when the schedule gets real again, what kind of player he is. But obviously, he needs to get the ball out quicker. And some of these times when he's not getting the ball out quicker, what's frustrating is that it is his first read. I mean, at least as far as I can tell, a lot of the times he's not getting the ball out quick enough. The ball is going to his primary. So I'm not sure at times what he's waiting for. And it seems to me often that Jalen has a very methodical approach to the game as far as the pace that he plays the game at in all areas. And that's a very good thing. He never rushes. He never gets ahead of himself. He goes at his own speed. But I think you see that sort of affect him in his passing game in a negative sense, just because there sometimes isn't the urgency that there needs to be to get the ball out. So, but that's correctable, I think. I think it's correctable. How quickly it will be corrected, I don't know. But it's clearly a correctable issue, and I do have a lot of faith in the coaching staff that they're going to be able to sort of get him. Because if he's going to get the ball out late when he's throwing to his second guy or the third guy or whatever, that's okay. We can live with that. But there's a lot of big plays out there to be made just throwing to the primary, and he needs to get the ball out on time to the primary. Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to say about Ole Miss?
Don't think so. Should we see, are there questions to the show?
We had one.
Okay.
Didn't we? We had a question. This is from @Corey Paul, who asked a question last week. Even with strong wins, does Alabama drop in the ratings after playing Kent State and Kentucky in back-to-back weeks? I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I think Alabama's sitting at 1 comfortably. So number 2 right now is Ohio State. And then you've got, Louisville and who else is up there? Michigan?
Yeah.
Are we going by the AP? Is that what we're...
Or AP, Ohio State's 2 in both, right?
I think so. I think it would just, if Alabama looks terrible the next 2 weeks, like if they really struggle with either of these teams and, somebody blowing opponents out, sure. That's definitely possible. I think the past couple of years, voters have shown a willingness to do that. Is that something that's going to hurt Alabama?
Right.
The way the playoff is, if Alabama is an undefeated or an even one-loss SEC champion at the end of the season, they're at this point. Yeah.
I was just wondering if any of the teams right behind them have a huge matchup coming up, and they have an opportunity for a great win. You know what I mean?
Louisville plays. Do they play Clemson later in the season? They have a big one coming up, I think.
Well, that's an opportunity for both of those teams. Then Louisville and Clemson playing each other.
I know they don't play Houston until later in the season, but
Ohio State plays Rutgers and Indiana, so that's not going to
happen. They ain't jumping nobody.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and especially, this shouldn't matter, but it does. Alabama's also the defending champs,
Yeah.
And defending champs, undefeated. Florida State didn't stay at 1, I guess, all year, but that was also the committee.
But they were consistently unimpressive all year, I think.
And that was the committee too, which is a different animal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this case, we're just talking about the AP and the coaches. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about. No, go ahead, Carl.
I think a lot of people have talked about, and I think fairly so, that this is a pretty down year for the SEC. And, with another team, maybe you would worry about that. But I think beyond the SEC, Alabama just has so much up right now that they're not. People aren't going to drop them. The committee's going to give them the benefit of the doubt. So, in that sense, I really don't think there's anything to worry about.
Yeah.
So I think that dovetails into another thing we wanted to talk about, which was Ben posed this question to the two of us: who can Alabama least, and I guess the converse is who can they most afford. If they're going to lose a game this season, from here on out, who can they most afford to lose to?
Well, the team they can most afford to lose to is Tennessee. That's sort of that's sort of an easy one to answer, or theoretically Kentucky, but
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tennessee is the quickest answer. The other one is sort of nebulous at this point, but it's I guess if if they're going to lose to a West team, it needs to be somebody that has 2 losses.
Yeah.
right.
Alabama
Which
loses. Just somebody to assume that you're going to beat the tiebreaker.
Yeah, so we don't have to worry about Ole Miss, right? So we can eliminate Ole Miss.
Well, so Ole Miss. Okay, so Ole Miss is out, so that leaves you with 7 remaining games.
Right.
Lost to Kentucky doesn't matter. Lost to Tennessee doesn't matter.
Right.
Lost to Auburn doesn't matter. Lost to Mississippi State doesn't matter.
Right.
So those 4 games right there, they lose. They're going to control their own destiny no matter what.
Yeah. So that leaves 3.
That leaves 3. So that leaves A&M,
Arkansas, A&M, and
LSU.
Now, if you want some good news, look at who all of their East opponents are.
You want to give it to us?
2 of them, I wish I remembered off the top of my head. 2 of them play Florida and Missouri, and I believe LSU plays Florida and Missouri, and I think I don't remember. I know LSU plays Florida and Missouri. Let me look up A&M. Basically,
is A&M's permanent opponent Missouri?
Yes.
I think their other East opponent is Georgia.
Okay.
Do we feel good about? Or you're saying we feel good about that?
No. Georgia plays Ole Miss though. So Georgia's 2 West games
and Georgia
will be
plays
Ole Miss
Auburn, and Georgia plays Auburn.
Yeah. So Ole Miss has to be their rotating game. So I guess it's a question of Auburn or of LSU, Arkansas, and A&M. Who do you most expect to lose 2 games at this point?
Or who do you?
I guess the answer is LSU, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, LSU. What are LSU's remaining road games in the SEC? Does somebody have that?
Yeah, I'll pull it up real quick. I kind of expect them all to lose 2 games.
I mean, so do I. But
yeah.
Look, I just want to say, and this probably doesn't even need to be said because it's so obvious.
Ooh.
Okay, give it to me.
They're at Florida, at Arkansas, and at A&M.
At Florida, at Arkansas, and at A&M. Okay, so they're gonna lose at Florida, at Arkansas, at A&M. What are
at home against Ole Miss?
Home against Ole Miss, and what's the other home game? Oh, Auburn.
Us.
Yeah. Well, us and
yeah, no, and at Auburn. They're at Auburn.
Okay.
Home against Missouri.
Okay. That seems like a pretty good bet for 2 losses, even if they beat Alabama.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you give us A&M?
Yeah. So A&M at South Carolina, at
That's
home against Tennessee.
Okay.
At Alabama, at Starkville, at home against Ole Miss, and then at home against LSU.
Well, that's decidedly easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about Arkansas?
So Arkansas. Let's see. At A&M, obviously. Home against us. Home against Ole Miss. At Jordan-Hare. Home against Florida. Home against LSU. At State. At Missouri.
They can, of those 3, they can most afford to lose to LSU.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree, though. You know, Mitch, I think you said that you don't expect any of them to lose just 1 game, right?
Right.
I haven't seen it. I need to watch more of them. But none of them strike me as an 11-1 team.
Right.
No. Like Arkansas and A&M look good, but do they look 11-1?
Right. But also
playing in the SEC West? I don't think so.
Think about in this scenario, Alabama beats 2 of these 3 teams. So 2 of these teams only need 1 other SEC loss, right?
But we're concerned about the team that they lose to.
Right. Well, right. But
but you're saying generally about being 2 loss, about whether they're yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. My gut says that Alabama could lose to anybody on the schedule, and that's fine.
Yep.
I think they could go 11-1 with a loss to anybody, and I think they're going to win the West.
I guess the only thing that could hurt them is losing to a bad team potentially for like. I mean, I don't know. Even if you lose to somebody like Kentucky and still win the SEC, I mean,
but that's the thing.
Does that
though,
even
right?
matter?
Do the losses even matter?
Right.
Look at Ohio State 2 years ago losing to Virginia Tech. Look at Oklahoma last year losing to Texas. I mean, that's not going. I mean, they're not going to lose to Kentucky, but even if they did, I don't think that matters.
Yeah, a 1-loss SEC champion Alabama as the defending champion is not getting left out. It's just not happening.
I guess not so much getting left out, but just putting themselves like in Atlanta as opposed.
In terms of like a less favorable seeding. Well, yeah,
right. I mean, because I think we could be looking at another year where we want to avoid Ohio State and Clemson, we get to the point where we're trying to avoid teams, I think.
Okay, well, there's that discussion too, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry, did you have more on that?
No.
I was just gonna say, give me your playoff 4 right now. I'm going 1 Alabama, 2 Ohio State, 3 Louisville, 4 Houston.
I think Houston or Louisville. I mean, I think Houston can afford to lose to Louisville.
Well, yeah. What are you asking? Are you asking as?
No. Not this is not a because Houston and Louisville aren't both going to be in it. I think one of them gets eliminated when they play each other. I'm just saying it right now. If you're doing a committee, who are your top 4?
You want to go, Mitch?
Let me think about it because I had it the other way around.
Well, I mean, obviously Alabama and Ohio State, I think, are going to be in both of ours. Look, Louisville just beat Florida State by 40-something points. So Louisville's in mine. I mean, they have to be, right?
Yeah.
No Big 12 teams in mine. I already got my Big 10 team. I got my SEC team.
Pac-12.
Well, what is
I'm not ready to put any of the Pac-12 teams in there.
Well, so what is it? It's so if
Clemson.
You want to put no, because Clemson hasn't looked good.
Yeah.
Clemson is good, but they haven't looked good.
I'm not ready to put Clemson in on just being like, oh, I know they're going to get better on offense. They beat, it was like South Carolina State or whatever, and they looked good in that. But as soon as they give me a really impressive win against a Power 5 team, I'll be ready to get back on the Clemson train.
Right.
But they just haven't showed that yet.
Michigan State? They didn't look good in Furman.
Yeah.
And they almost collapsed.
If Michigan State keeps winning, they're on my radar at this point. But at this point, we don't really know how good Notre Dame is. So,
yeah, what we know about Notre Dame is that the quarterback can really play.
Yes.
And then there's so then I guess Michigan, obviously.
Yeah. Michigan, I'm not ready to go all in on Michigan. One, they haven't. Yes, Colorado is better, but they went down 21-7 to Colorado in the first quarter, and then Colorado's quarterback got hurt.
Right. S&P Plus has them at 1, though, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Although that, I mean, S&P Plus is still like 70% preseason, 70% projections at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
Oh,
ESPN
it's-
does less on preseason, and they're a little more down.
Um, then
Also, FEI, the other component of F Plus, has them at like 12.
okay.
To me, they strike me as basically the same team as last year. On defense, and good enough on offense.
Right.
Do I expect them? I just don't see them beating Ohio State right now. I just think Ohio State's, barring Ohio State's players starting to look their age, I just think Ohio State's talent is too much for anybody else in the Big Ten East.
Yeah, I don't know.
East.
Legend, is it still
No,
Legends?
I don't think it's Legends and Leaders
Leaders?
anymore. I think they
No.
went
It's
back to
East and West now.
geography.
Yeah.
What a disappointment.
Now, if I'm going to take a Big Ten team, it's going to be Ohio State.
And then there's the Pac teams. I mean, Washington, Stanford.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch Washington as they get into the conference schedule. I want to see if they can live up to the hype. But I think I read earlier that there is a good chance they will have the weakest they played nobody. I mean, everybody ain't played nobody, but they have played nobody.
And will play nobody
So-
outside of the Pac-12. Right?
Yeah. Stanford, I'm not ready to go in on yet. They beat apparently disintegrating USC team
Right.
points. They weren't a whole lot more impressive against K-State, and say what you will about Snyder's magic, but I'm not impressed by K-State. If Stanford continues to crush people in conference play, I'll be ready to get on that train as far as a playoff team. But
we'll know in the next 2 weeks. They have
Yeah.
UCLA and Washington in the next 2 weeks, so we should have a pretty good idea on Stanford.
Yeah, but then the
I
problem
really want to see what that one's going to be like.
the problem with Houston though is that who knows what Oklahoma is.
Right. And I think it's fair to give credit Houston at yes, they looked rough, but it was like a Thursday night game, and it's Tuberville, and weird things happen on Thursday night with Tommy Tuberville, and they were in a tough situation, and then it took till the fourth quarter, but then they came back and really pulled away, and so Houston right now for me is not just off the strength of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I could roll the dice on Houston. I could roll the dice on Houston. I could roll the dice on Clemson, and I could roll the dice on Stanford. I could see those three. Michigan too, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I do feel good about Alabama, Ohio State, and Louisville.
Yeah. I think those three are rock solid. Okay, and then the last thing we wanted to talk about was another question that Ben had posed to us earlier in the week. Who has
Well,
the
we
best?
talked about John Allen.
Yeah. Or did you? Or do you want to have him as part of this discussion?
Well, no. Well, I just wanted to explain the lead into it, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
John Allen is really good. He's really good. He is going to, in my opinion, almost certainly going to have the best season that a defensive lineman has had under Saban at Alabama. I think that's almost. I think that's without a doubt. I don't really know who number one is right now. Maybe a Marcel Darius season, but he's kind of hurt in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he really didn't. Yeah, is it John last year
or Jerron Reed last year?
Yeah. I think it's got to be one of those. Just because in earlier Saban years,
there wasn't
as good a defensive line as they had, they just they were so classical Saban 3-4 defense that the defensive linemen weren't doing a whole lot more than two gapping and holding their blocks.
I mean, Terrence Cody, 2008, maybe. I mean, he was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would probably. There's no question that it's going to be John this year.
Yeah.
On that topic, but then the larger conversation though is, does John have a chance to have the best individual defensive season of any player under Saban at Alabama, regardless of position, and if so, or regardless, who is number one right now? I mean, what individual defender had the best season under Saban? So I think that's an interesting question to pose to you guys.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it.
It's very tough to compare across positions. I think
it is.
Sort of
Yeah.
The initial caveat here.
So you made this point earlier in the week, and I think I agree with it, that I think Clinton Dix has to be in the conversation for best defensive player under Saban, but I don't know that you can say that any of his seasons was the best individual season.
Right. Because they also overlapped with two of the other seasons we'll probably talk about.
Right.
Yeah.
The issue, right, well, that's one thing. But the issue with is that in 2012, he wasn't playing every single snap until later in the year. He was still splitting time with Nick Perry for some of the season. And then in 2013, he got suspended and he missed a couple games, and then he tore his meniscus and he wasn't good in the Iron Bowl. So I just don't, that's just not going to be one of those seasons as good as he was when he was right and when he was playing. That's just not going to be the best season. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think your contenders are 2012 D. Milner.
Yes.
2013 C.J. Mosley.
2012 C.J. Mosley.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he wasn't.
Although C.J.
He was coming off the field some. He was coming off the field some on standard downs. But man, he was good. He was good.
You know who I think is fair to include in the conversation as far as another contender because I think it's absolutely fair to say that John is in contention for that this year. I think Reuben Foster's got a chance at it too.
Yeah.
I think and I realize this is sort of a bold statement given the incredible lineage they have had at inside linebacker, but Reuben could be the best one.
Well, now, I was very surprised. We did that thing over text where we ranked the top 10 Alabama defenders. And I was surprised that Mitch put Reuben at 4. Now, I'm curious as to whether that is you not thinking that he's as good as Carter and I think, or you just think more highly of some of the other guys. Because you had Ryan and Reuben Ryan and Marlon ahead of him.
I think I've just seen more. I mean, I think I like what I've seen from Reuben this season to put him at that number 2, but I just feel like I've seen more from Marlon and Ryan already. But I mean, if he keeps this up, he's, no doubt my top 2 by the end of the season.
I mean, he's so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He makes plays.
He's so fast. He's still, he's just as much of a force in the run game as any of those guys were.
Yeah, Reggie
he's
or
easily
Rose.
the fastest of them.
Yep.
He's phenomenal. He's easily the best coverage linebacker they've had since C.J. Mosley, and he has a chance to be just as good as C.J. Mosley. Actually, maybe better because he's faster than C.J.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Reuben is some kind of player.
And it's particularly impressive to me because I think of all the guys that have come up through that position, CJ was a dynamite player as a freshman.
Right.
And it took a while for Reggie to make an impact, but he was kind of in a log jam behind guys.
Dante was a player as a freshman.
Yeah, that's true. And so was Rolando.
Right.
But Reuben, you kind of wondered, he had all those problems with his tackling technique. It just seemed, it just seemed like there was, and maybe that there was sort of a mental, like that I wondered if he could step into that field general role that the other guys had stepped into and really be that guy who is commanding the middle of the defense. But he absolutely has stepped, even as late as last year, I sort of wondered if that could be the case, even as he was starting to really show his potential last year. Um, and it's only 3 games, but like he hasn't missed a tackle this year. He has no missed tackles this year.
And he makes tackles everywhere on the field.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about a middle linebacker making plays between the tackles on run fills. I mean, this guy goes sideline to sideline, and he's making plays on, everywhere.
Yeah, and that was there was a great piece on PFF, I guess today, about like it was like highlighting 10 player. It was like the most.
I saw, yeah,
the most like dominating moves in college football. It was like so and so's hands, blah 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 blah. They pointed out it's like Ruben's tackling ability, and they were like, there are 2 linebackers in the country that have more tackles than Ruben without missing a tackle. And I don't know who those guys are, but they were like, neither of those guys has anywhere close to Ruben's speed and like all over. Like those, my understanding was that whoever those guys are, they're sort of traditional middle linebackers who are just coming up and making tackles on run fills, as opposed to Ruben, who's flying all over the field.
The star power on this defense is incredible.
Yeah,
it's really incredible. They have maybe 5 first-round picks out there.
Yeah. I mean, you have to go down. I mean, I was thinking
That doesn't include Eddie.
Yeah. I mean, do we think of the guys that are certain to leave this year that are going to get drafted? Is Dalvin's probably going to be the
Dalvin's
lowest?
A player.
Dalvin is going to be like a Jaron Reed type guy. One where like I think coming into last season, when you were looking at people who thought were going to be draft prospects, I don't think a lot of people knew about Jaron.
No.
He was not on sort of the, your draftniks who are really more NFL people who you kind of question sometimes if they really know what they're talking about when they talk about college football. Those guys did not have Jaron on their radar.
Right.
Dalvin is going to be that guy. Dalvin is going to be the guy that he's just going to go under the radar, and everyone's going to be like, oh, John Allen, oh, Tim Williams. Even Ryan Anderson is starting to get more hype. When actual NFL scouts start to look at the tape and when their thoughts and evaluations start to leak into the like draft media, Dalvin is going to shoot up the board.
Yeah, Mitch, I'm sorry.
He is a dominant player.
Yeah, Mitch, I'm sorry to interrupt. I know you were knocking Dalvin. I just got excited because you mentioned Dalvin, and I feel like we don't talk enough about him. So I'm sorry.
I was perusing the current like draft boards that are out there right now, the draft projections, and I think he's the lowest of the like guys that are certain to leave after this season. He's the lowest at like a 4 or 5 round grade or something.
Yeah,
and that's going to go up.
That's going to go. I mean, but think about. Think about who the lowest is going to be then. I mean, maybe Eddie?
Eddie's got to be a 2nd round grade.
You think? Okay. So who's going to be the lowest?
Maybe I'm over. Maybe I don't want to overrate somebody.
It's going to be like Ohio State last year. They're probably going to have at least 8 guys drafted in the first 3 rounds. Like, okay, just think of the seniors on defense. Well, Ryan, John, Ruben, Tim, Dalvin, I think is going to be a top 3 rounds. Eddie,
that's 6 right there.
Marlon's probably going to go, so that's another one. That's 7. Yep. We're swapping to offense now, but Cam's going to go in the first round.
I think they have 7 that are going. I think they have 7 defenders that are going to go in the first 2 rounds.
Okay, so 7 rounds.
I think that's what I think. I would put money on that they have 7 guys go in the first 2 rounds. Because which one doesn't? Which of those 7 don't go in the first 2 rounds? Is Eddie the guy? Maybe.
That was my bet. I mean, I was thinking Eddie 3rd round would be my best guess.
I think Eddie's floor is 2nd round. Unless he just has a really bad year or gets hurt or there's some question. Like unless there's some. If he keeps up what he's doing, I think he's sure at least a 2nd round. I've seen plenty of mock drafts with him in the 1st round.
Yeah, that's true.
The thing about it is that last year Alabama had a lot of really good players, right, on defense, but not all of them. You didn't feel that all of them were like NFL prototypes.
Yeah, like Cyrus, for instance.
Right, but then it's like Ashawn Robinson, Jaron Reed, Reggie Ragland. Like those aren't the guys that typically make huge impacts in the NFL. But the guys that Alabama has on the defense really are that. You know, you've got two edge rushers with Ryan Anderson and Tim Williams, which obviously NFL teams love. You've got John Allen's going to go in the first round. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You've got Reuben, who's like a speedier, more coverage type, or can be a more coverage type inside linebacker. That's the guy that's coveted. You got Marlon, lockdown corner. He's coveted. So it's like not only are these guys great, but they're the sort of players that are really coveted by NFL teams.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, man, the star power is unreal. It's unreal.
Well, and you start thinking about offensive guys. I mean, they could have it never turns out this way when you think it, like there's always going to be somebody that drops. But they could have like 8 first-rounders. Cam's a first-rounder almost for certain. OJ,
yeah.
OJ could certainly be a first round. Like
at worst second round, he's at worst.
Yeah. At this point, maybe he drops because of but he's certainly in the mix to be a first rounder. Certainly, there are a lot of people who think he could be. John's a surefire first rounder. Tim and Ryan both have a shot. I think Reuben's just about a lock at this point. If Marlon goes, he's a lock.
Marlon's a lock, and Marlon's going.
Yeah. Eddie has that potential, I think. So you could just see.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at the high end there could be 8 first-round picks.
It's crazy.
Do they just come have the draft in Tuscaloosa?
I would be. I mean, just like
just for convenience.
Saban goes to draft anyway. So why don't we just bring the draft to Saban? I think is just have it in the athletic facility. Yeah. I mean, really, it's they got some players this year. I know. We said last year. We talked last year about the defense, and we said because of what they can do defensively, it would really feel like a huge disappointment if they didn't win the national championship.
Starting to feel that way again.
It is. I mean, it is. It just is.
Yeah.
It just because of it's really because of how many guys came back.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it very much could have been the situation that was not how this year went.
It's unprecedented. The talent, the draft, it's the draft eligible talent that came back to the team is kind of feels unprecedented. And I mean, it's still a true freshman quarterback, but like.
Well, I was like randomly trolling through some old tweets a week or two ago, and I stumbled on. We were having a discussion about the outlook for the defense this year, and I tweeted something. It was like, the outlook for the defense next year is going to be determined. I said, like, John Allen is a lock to go.
Yeah.
And, like, the outlook will be determined by how many of Reuben, Ryan, and Eddie return. Well, those 3 came back, and John came back.
Yep.
So, in my wildest dreams,
no,
I could not have expected that they would get all 4 of those guys back.
That was so fun. Like, you win the national championship, and then in the coming week, all those guys decide to stay. Like, that was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that was I saw some people joke, and it's absolutely a fair characterization that might be Nick Saban's biggest recruiting win of his career.
Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, and I know we're out of time, but I am incredibly optimistic about this team. Just because I feel like a lot of the things we were concerned about, I feel there weren't that many things.
Yeah.
And I feel less concerned. We thought a lot of them would be solved with time, and B, I think a lot of them started to be solved quicker than we anticipated in that Ole Miss game.
Yeah. And things can change, but the schedule doesn't look nearly as bad as it did.
If there was ever, and I know they already did it once under Saban, but if there was ever an Alabama team that was going to run through the SEC undefeated, I think it's this team. Because like, I mean, what do you say? Like, well, true freshman quarterback implodes on the road, but
is he going to?
Is this the yeah?
At this point, I would be more. He'll make mistakes, but I would be flabbergasted to see, based on what we've seen so far, to see Jalen really like fall apart.
It's also because his game, it's not just a thrower. If he was just drop back, then you'd be more concerned about that. But half his game is as a runner.
Yeah.
Where implosion becomes a lot less likely because you're just running the ball. I don't know. I think this is going to be his best. I think this is going to be Saban's best team. That's just what I think.
Yeah.
So much star power. They're so dynamic everywhere. If Jalen can make those deep ball throws,
Yeah.
like that's the thing. That's like
Mhm.
next. If he can do that, it's like it takes the team to the next level.
If the offensive line continues to play well and Jalen improves as a passer, this team should they should be 13-0 going into play.
And Tony, and we seem to get good
Ooh,
news
yeah.
today. It really seems like he's maybe going to be even back for Kentucky, and if he's going to step in there and be the sort of guy that we're really hoping that he can be, Tony, Jalen deep ball, and interior of the offensive line, and they're on 13-0. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw that
And
out
I don't
there.
even like Tony to me is a bonus.
Yeah,
Like I feel like they need Jalen to improve and they need the offensive line to continue to
okay.
improve. But I think if the defense is exactly as good as it is now, they can go 13-0.
What's the game after Kentucky?
Tennessee?
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Man, if Jalen comes out there against Arkansas and he's hitting his deep balls,
Game over.
They're gonna be, you know. I mean, make those hotel reservations for Atlanta because, like, I mean, it's just gonna
For which
feel.
game? For which game in Atlanta?
Oh, that's right. That's right. And you know
Oh,
which
the
one I was
championship
talking.
also
You
in
know which
Atlanta?
one I was talking about.
The playoff-
But
the playoff
Let's just stay there. Just hang out for 5 weeks.
I was thinking. Where's the champion? The championship is in Tampa this year.
Tampa.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't thinking SEC championship. I was thinking.
Okay.
I was thinking Peach Bowl.
We're just
I mean,
staying around.
let's like. With the obvious caveat that we're 3 games in and things can change, but the East doesn't scare you this year.
No.
None of those teams are good enough. Florida's defense looks nasty, but I just don't think none of those teams threaten me.
You love this. You love the speed of this defense, the edge-to-edge speed that this defense has, as far as what their chances are against that Tennessee offense.
Yes, because Dobbs is
right.
He's just a bad there's been so much talk about it's like, oh, if Dobbs improves as a passer, if it gets better, and if they can develop pass. Yeah. Dobbs is just not a good passer. At this point, he is what he is. So
and it's a dangerous running attack, but I just love the chances of this defense. They defended those option plays against Ole Miss so well.
Yeah, if speedy edge running game was something that scared you a lot in the past as an Alabama fan, that doesn't scare me this year.
And man, if Tim can be a standard down player, like like comfortable standard down player by then, and I thought he did pretty well in that role against Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
That's just even more. It's just even more speed.
Yeah.
You know. So I don't know. I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel really, really good.
I said something like this Saturday night, but like last year after the Ole Miss game, I was gumping hard about the team,
right?
Because I felt that the way that game. The things that it took for Ole Miss to win that game by 6 points, I was like, this team is really good. This team can win it all. This year, I feel the same way, except they won the damn game.
Yeah, it just shocks me that people seem so negative after that game.
Yeah.
Like I know, right?
Twitter and stuff. Like, first of all, they won, but second of all, I know there was issues at times, but a lot of the concerns you had going in, they played well in those areas. So I just don't understand, I don't understand what somebody could possibly be feeling negative about. Yeah, Chad Kelly and the receivers made some great plays, but what does that mean?
Receivers are really, really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good. And then college football is at a point where sometimes you're going to go up against a great offense, and that a great offense is just going to score points against you.
Right.
I mean, did the national championship game not teach people that?
And does Jalen does he have room to grow as a passer? Sure, of course. But I'm really happy with the direction of the offense. I think that's sort of my main point about what I saw on Saturday as far as how I see this team going forward. I'm really happy with the direction of the offense overall. as far as how it seems to be evolving in the running game and the potential for plays in the passing game.
Yeah. Like, if they can run the ball like that for the rest of the year, see, that's the thing, you know, as much as Alabama fans annoy me sometimes with their freakish obsession with running the ball, the good thing about running the ball is that it's so much more consistent. Like,
Right.
good rushing attacks don't get stopped as frequent. Like, even when you have a really elite passing game, sometimes things just break down. Like, your timing's off. You're a really great pass rusher throws a quarterback's timing off. Things happen. But, you know, think about 2012. When you have a running game like that, and, you know, obviously for this year, that's contingent. I don't think we're ready to say that the offensive line, the interior of the offensive line, can play like that the whole year. But if they can, then I feel great about basically every aspect of this team.
It's a good way to end it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Remember that this video will, at some point, be posted on houndstoothheroes.com. And we'll see you next week. And roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
All the time.